we dive into our goodness on calling this week. I'm going to start out with this thought. It's not a thought from David's sermon, really, but it's something that, as I was processing, just really occurred to me. You are not missing out. You are not missing out. They are. So I'll unpack that a little bit more as we move along, but just kind of sit on that for a second. You're not missing out. They are. We're talking about being called to the world. So I'll try to give you the briefest synopsis ever of what this calling series is about, and where David kind of came from this past Sunday. First of all, what we've said all along is that calling, the idea of being called, primarily is about being called to a person. I really love one of the illustrations that David and Bob have used in their sermon. They've had a little hook, and they've attached rings to it and said the hook is, you're called to the person of Jesus. You're called to be with Jesus. And then these little rings you can put on there. You know, you're called to family. You're called to work. You're called to the world. You're called to the body, etc. All these various things flow out of being called to the person of Jesus. And I want to sit on that again because it's really important. We're called to the person of Jesus. One of the things David said was we're not called to a philosophy, a system, or a religion. We're not called to tasks, duties. We're not really even called to behaviors, primarily. Those things might flow out of being called to the person of Jesus, but that's not what we're called to. We're not called to be a theological or apologetics expert. Now, wanting to know more about theology, wanting to know more about Jesus does flow out of being called to the person of Jesus, but primarily, that's not the first thing, right? You get the first domino in order, the others fall, right? That's a popeism I think I stole. Not the Pope, our Pope, Randy. So we're called to a person. One of the things that I think I'm taking away from this series, I don't know that this is anything that David or Bob have particularly said, was this. Calling primarily means that you are called where you already are. That's what we're talking about. You are called where you are, right now. Whatever that is. In this room, we're primarily single. You are called to be single right now. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not after the gathering tonight. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe you will elope. That's not a great idea, but maybe. But right now, you're called to be single. We're going to come back around and talk about that one at the end. Some of you would realize the week that Bob talked about being called to family, the ice storm happened, so we weren't able to meet that week, and David and I were both bummed. We're like, oh man, this is a great one for us. So we're just going to tag that onto the end and talk a little more about, okay, what's that look like? But for right now, that's where you're called. You're called to whatever job you have, however much it stinks. You are called to it right now. In other words, and I'll unpack a little bit more of that, but in other words, you are not called to figure out what you're supposed to do in the future out there somewhere. I would go so far as saying you are actually called to not do that. Calling is about right now. Whenever we start talking about calling, we start thinking there might be something that we're missing. There might be something that we're missing out on. There might be some person or some job or some career that had we only made a different decision 5 years, 3 days, and 2 hours ago, we'd really be in our calling now, right? It's that thing out there that platonic idealism or whatever for you personally that you're supposed to be, that somehow you messed it all up, right? Or you're gonna mess it all up, right? If you don't mind your P's and Q's right now, if you don't do it exactly right, somehow it's all gonna end up screwy down the road. We think, what if I choose the wrong career? What if I choose the wrong person? Right? Whoa, scary. I will say this: there could be the wrong person in terms of, like, are you a believer? Better be pursuing believers. Better be pursuing someone who's going the same direction in their life that you are. Right? Other than some of those basic things, I love this quote. Tim Keller says, "You always marry the wrong person." You always marry the wrong person, right? Everybody's a mess, and you get to grow together in believing the gospel together and learning to lay down your life for one another. So, but I think that's something that plagues us oftentimes, and especially as soon as we bring up the word calling on a screen, it's like, oh man, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Am I getting it right? What if I make the wrong choice and miss out on the good life that I'm supposed to have, right? So, let me encourage you tonight. God is sovereign. God is sovereign. You are called where you already are. That does not mean you have to stay there forever. That does not mean you have to stay there tomorrow. But you're called there right now. Calling is truly about now, not out there. Calling about now, not out there. You cannot miss out. Okay? I think this is particularly, maybe everybody has stressed about this throughout the centuries, but I think it's particularly a bugaboo for us in this generation, in this time. And you think about the things that we worry about missing out on, right? Socially. You worried about missing out socially? I bet you are, because I bet all of us are a little bit, right? Some of us tend to, I think, it's like, I've got to accept every invitation to everything I ever get because I can't miss out on any good times, right? That's what's making life complete right now. Not Jesus, good times, right? I can't not go. Have to go. Or maybe you're like me, I'm a little more aloof. That's usually not used in a positive sense when people are talking about me, but it's usually how people describe me. I'm usually the one who's like, yeah, well, maybe. We'll see. Kind of wait and see what all the options are and then choose from there. And I got to be honest, usually I choose hanging out with me. I'm a recluse. No, but I think that's an example that probably some of us can really connect to, right? Worried about missing out socially. Maybe worried about missing out in terms of technology. That's a big thing for us right now, right? I mean, you have the newest iPhone, iPad, Samsung, whatever they call them. They got like 12 names on those things, right? It's like the Samsung Galaxy 5S, 3, 9, 12, 37, Universe, something or other. I don't even know what sound bars were. Apparently, I've been missing out on that. That's something new. Are you shelling out your cash on what you're missing out on in that, perhaps in material things? I don't know. Something that maybe our hearts can connect to here. Our society is obsessed with not missing out on news/gossip. I'm not sure where one ends or the other begins these days, right? And as much as we like to blame it on people out there, like it's that TMZ and it's them Huffington Post people, it's us too, right? I mean, are you refreshing your Twitter feed all the time? Are y'all even on Twitter? Are you a news junkie? Are you a gossip junkie? You worried about missing out? Do you need to be the one who's like, did you hear? Somebody is. just some examples. Maybe that doesn't connect with you. Maybe it's something totally different that you're recognizing right now. But here's the idea. You're not missing out. They are. I'll tell you this. In terms of trying to figure out what you're called to out there, I'd say this. David can come up here and smack me and tell me I'm wrong if I'm wrong, but I don't think you're going to find anywhere in the Bible the idea that you should be agonizing and begging and trying to manipulate God into telling you what your every step should be. I don't see that biblically. That doesn't mean that God can't like pull an audible sometimes, right? And move you toward or away from something. He certainly can. He certainly does at points. But by and large, that is not the normative way that you should expect him to interact with you in your life, right? If you do, you're going to be severely disappointed. He's generally not in the business of making our choices for us. So, that's the idea. You're not missing out. He's not really calling you to try to like read the signs somewhere and find out if there's some magical thing you're supposed to be doing. You're free to pursue something else. It's something Bob hit on a couple weeks ago. When you want to move in a certain direction, be it move actually a place, a career, a person, you by and large you are free. Use wisdom, right? And I'm hitting on some stuff along the way from this series because I feel like we need to set some context first, right? So use wisdom when you feel like, man, I'm not in a job that I love. You're free. You're called there today, but you're free. Look around, right? Use wisdom and develop wisdom now, right? Develop wisdom via knowing the Bible, understanding who God is, etc., understanding who you are, right? Develop it now. Don't wait until there's this imminent decision so that you're like, throwing dice on the floor and like, oh, if it hits a 5, then I'm moving to Anaheim. I don't know. People do things like that. So 3 things that we've talked about a little bit. This is more in terms of vocation, but just to remind us sort of where we are when you're trying to understand what calling is and what it would mean to move out of something where you don't like it, where it's just not happy, right? 3 things: passion, your gifts, your opportunities, right? What do you care about? What are you passionate about? What gets your heart racing? It's there for a reason. Right? God created you the way you are. Those are good things. Usually we stop here and try to find a way to feel like God is blessing our pursuit of our passions. Instead, we should take this into account and look at the next step. What are your gifts? What are you good at? And not just what you think you're good at, because there are a lot of people, for example, that want to play music on a stage that are not good at it. I'm just saying, you know who I'm talking about? Not here. Actually, I think that sounded like I was talking about someone specific. I'm really not. But you've probably run into someone like that in your life. Maybe you've been someone like that in your life. I don't know. You should be good at something, and other people should tell you that, right? Other people, particularly those who know you well, and those who are pursuing Jesus, what did they say in terms of where your giftedness is, right? So that could be something in terms of your spiritual giftings. It could be, if it's something you're looking at in terms of a career move, like, hey, tell me honestly, what am I good at? What do I stink at? Let's evaluate this thing. So what are you passionate about? What are your gifts? What are your opportunities? Do you have a realistic opportunity to pursue it, right? You may not have a job offer in front of you. If you're thinking about grad school, you may not have like Harvard knocking on your door and like, we would love to give you a scholarship. Come study sociology with us. But do you have a realistic opportunity to pursue this? And then, you got to have wisdom. You have to be able to weigh the cost-benefit analysis, right? What my passions? What's this going to cost? How do I really pursue this? So, just a thought. There are also some areas we're not free to pursue something else, right? I have a ring on. I'm not free to pursue not being in my marriage, right? I'm covenanted to my wife. I'm free to pursue her for my life, right? I'm now a parent, right? I'm not free to pursue whatever tickles my fancy one morning and not be a dad anymore, right? I'm free to pursue being a good dad. And to some extent, family can fall into that. That's another one you need wisdom for, though, honestly. If you're in the middle of your current calling, your current job or whatever, you're not free to just drop your responsibilities, right? Just because it doesn't feel like the thing you're made for doesn't mean you just run away from it. We're not free to not pursue obedience to the will and character of God, right? Being called to the person of Christ, that flows from that. And we're not free to not pursue his mission, right? That's one of those places where we're bound to this. If we belong to him, we are about the world. His mission to those who are outside of the faith. To be called to Christ is to be called to the world. Called to Christ is to be called to the world. These things are absolutely inseparable, right? Like we said, there's a first thing that has to be called to the person, but these things are inseparable. He didn't save you. He didn't call you for your own personal satisfaction, for your own enjoyment, for your own comfort, right? He saved us to be a people, a nation, a kingdom. We created a you to be an us, right? We, the Trinity, created a you to be an us. And that means both fellowship with him and fellowship together. It means that we're called to the body. We're going to get into that a little bit next week. And we're called to build the body of Christ. Build his people. We're called to lay down our lives for the freedom of people. That's something that David talked about this week. He said this, there's something that stirs in our soul for that. I think there's something that stirs in the soul of humanity for that, not just believers. David pointed out the scene in Braveheart. Most of you guys were 5 when that came out. I'll explain it to you later. I'm kidding. You've probably all seen Braveheart, right? Please tell me yes. There's this scene at the end where Mel Gibson is being killed, tortured basically, and they say, hey, just say mercy and we'll let you go. And he screams out, freedom. And David said every man that's watching it wants to like jump through a wall or something. And women too, probably. Right? Our souls are stirred for this. A lot of you guys probably even saw today, it's the 27th of February. And so the End It movement, the stuff that Louis Giglio is heading up in terms of bringing awareness to 27 million people in slavery around the world, right? People putting little red X's on their hands. There's something about it, even though it's a small gesture, that a lot of us are like, yeah, we want to be a part of that. Our souls are stirred by the thought of bringing freedom to people, to others. He said this as well. Freedom ultimately is a means to an end. just freedom by itself that's not the point, really, right? So we're to be about the freedom of man and the fame of God. We're free to do something, right? We're God's workmanship created in Christ Jesus to do good works that he set out beforehand for us to do, to worship. That's the idea. We're freed to worship him so that God's fame will spread. David referenced Habakkuk 2:14, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. The reason that our hearts pound when we watch, Braveheart or Gladiator or some of these awesome movies where people are fighting for freedom is that there is an ultimate freedom that we're called to be a part of. We're called to be a part of setting the captive free in an ultimate sense. Not just physical slavery here, which is bad enough, but set free to life. Worship equals life. John 10:10, Jesus says, I came, why? So that you'll be set free to run around like a nut job in an asylum? So that you'll be set free just to read off, a list of how great I am, right? Oh, dear Lord, you are awesome. Dear Lord, you are good. Dear Lord. He doesn't want that. Worship equals life for us, right? As we worship, we also receive life. And that's what Jesus wants for us. I love this thought. That which you revere, you will resemble, right? That which you worship, you are becoming like. So when you worship the giver of life, life is growing exponentially in you. That which you revere, you will resemble. You are not missing out. They are. If the gospel stops with you, I heard Giglio say this recently, you got the wrong gospel. The gospel stops with you. If the gospel is just 4 points that you read in a booklet one time and prayed a prayer and said, yeah, I'm in, got my heaven ticket, good to go, you got the wrong gospel. That's not it, man. We're called, David said it this way, to invest, to sacrifice, to go on a love offensive. Our world is dying to do this. You realize that? Those that have no idea who Jesus is, they're all about it. And you see it all around us, right? Tons of people trying to set others free. Whether it's buying Tom's shoes or being a part of international justice mission, going to the inner city to serve, all kinds of non-Christians are doing these things, right? But ultimately, can you imagine trying to really be a part of people's freedom apart from Jesus? Impossible. I just want to leave us with a few thoughts, a few questions. Has the gospel captured your soul? Has the gospel captured your heart? Are you caught up with the unfathomable grace of Jesus? What has? Because I know even for those of us that might be true overall, there are little things that we're caught up in right now. Right? So what has? If you're taking notes, write down some things. If they're popping into your head, what has captured your heart? What has captured your heart that the idea of God himself coming to give you life and to do it at the price of his own life is not the biggest thing that grabs a hold of your soul and shakes you and says, this is worth your life? Because if that ain't it, something's wrong, right? So, A, what's got a hold of your heart? B, what is blocking you from seeing the life-giving spring of the grace of Jesus Christ? What's blocking that out? I had a few thoughts. It might be something totally different for you, but I'm just going to throw these out as maybe suggestions. Is it performance? Can you not see that the grace of Jesus over your life? Can you not see the gospel that you were purchased with the price of his blood because you think you've got to earn something? Because you think you've got to clean off whatever it is that you did or you've done before you come back before him to receive. Right? Maybe. Is it apathy? Are you caught up in Xbox? Are you caught up in just not having any passion about life? I don't know. Is it your sin? Is there something in your life that's just hanging in front of your face, so much so that you just don't even know how to look around it? What is it? I want to encourage you tonight to see Jesus. Go looking for him. Right? Remember the gospel. Be around people that speak the gospel into your life. If the people that you hang around are in this room and they are not speaking gospel into your life, stop hanging around them. Unless you're going to evangelize them, that's cool. But honestly, don't waste your time not speaking life into one another and over one another. See Jesus. If you're not giving your life away for the gospel, you're not seeing or savoring him. I promise you. And if you see his love for you, there's no excuse on earth that's ever gonna stop you from sharing it. Right? There might be moments where there's an excuse and it works, but over the course of your life, you are going to be a sharer of the good news. You're going to be a sharer of the best thing you've ever heard about, if you see it. So do you see it today? And would you pursue it if you don't? Because I promise you, if you're his, you are not the one who's missing out. Okay? Let me pray over us.